Chapter 541. After the meal, Xiao Jin was eager to try out the time array points she had obtained. She had lost some memories, and she didn't know if she could see the past at this array point. She didn't hide from Song Yanqing when she used the array. Song Yanqing had a lot of things to do. The moment he turned on his phone, he found that he and Xiao Jin had been missing for almost 4 days. 4 days was enough for him to mess up some of the things in his control. He needed some time to turn everything around reasonably. So he was very busy. He looked up and could see Xiao Jin standing in the living room with her eyes closed. When he first saw her, she was still a little fragile, but she looked more alive now. Today, Xiao Jin was like a goddess, with a compassionate look on her face. But in fact, she was too naive and childish about some things. She didn't understand anything. He was wondering what she was. The man in the moonlight looked at her quietly. There was a smile on his lips, and the light in his deep eyes didn't make people doubt this man's love for girls. However, there were some things that she didn't understand for the time being. Xiao Jin closed her eyes. Her actual thoughts and the array point led her back to the past. However, she thought too well. She used 2 strands of her demonic spirit seed to turn back time, and only saw a broken scene. A fair hand held a brush and drew a few strokes on the surface of a fan. It was such a scene, but it seemed to have used up all the power of the array. With a bang, the scene shattered. Everything was gone. Xiao Jin opened her eyes and felt a little heartache for the first time. It was not worth it. She could probably see that the folding fan might have something to do with her. Then why was Song Yanqing the one who got the folding fan? Could it be that she left it for him? Xiao Jin frowned deeply. She quickly realized that she had forgotten a lot of things in these 10,000 years. Although she didn't feel any danger, she was not satisfied with this way of decrypting the layers of secrets. Why did she leave these holes to harm herself in the first place? In the end, it was his sworn enemy who had done him a lot of harm. Xiao Jin walked in front of Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing asked her gently, "What did you use the array for?" She used the array to trace back to the past, but Song Yanqing did not know that she came from a long time ago. Xiao Jin said, "I have nothing to do, so I'll try a new array point." It was rare for Song Yanqing to make a joke. To see the time when you could only cry when you were a child. Xiao Jin, she suddenly calmed down strangely. "With this, I can directly see who hurt you. Do you want to see?" Song Yanqing's eyes drooped slightly. "You said that if you meddle in my affairs, you will have karma." Xiao Jin said, "I now have the demonic spiritual seed and your death aura. I can block it." Song Yanqing said, "Don't waste it. My hunch tells me that if Feudalland appears, that person won't be far away. I don't want to see any accidents happen to you." Song Yanqing had now faintly touched the threshold of karma. He knew that Xiao Jin respected karma, so he didn't want Xiao Jin to be involved in anything because of him. Hearing this, Xiao Jin nodded. "Okay, but if you want to see it, you can tell me at any time." Song Yanqing had a satisfied smile on his lips, and his eyes were even gentler. "Okay." Xiao Jin had changed. She didn't know. Chapter 542. Back then, when Xiao Jin refused to intervene in Song Yanqing's affairs, he refused mercilessly. Now, she actually took the initiative to say that she could help Song Yanqing. She didn't understand it herself, but Song Yanqing, who was sensitive, could easily feel the difference. This was good. There was still a long time. He stayed in the hotel with Song Yanqing for the whole afternoon. He booked a ticket for tomorrow morning and returned to the capital early in the morning. Xiao Jin didn't remember to charge his phone until halfway through the journey. After turning on the phone, Xiao Fei's crying could be heard through the phone. You're getting bolder and bolder now. You didn't call Mom for 4 days in a row. Do you know that Mom called the police? If it wasn't for young Master Song's men telling me that you were together with him, I would have suspected that you were sold to the mountains to dig coal. Mu Xiangshan's voice came from the side. I think she's the one who sold others. This teasing couldn't stop Xiao Fei's crying. Xiao Jin had a headache and apologized, which was rare. It's my fault. I should have told you in advance. I was busy these days and my phone ran out of battery. I didn't notice. Xiao Fei couldn't believe it. Young people nowadays forget to charge their phones when they run out of battery. Don't you play with your phone? Was Jean a pervert? When she reacted, she felt that as a mother, how could she say that her daughter was a pervert? Sob, 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 she was anxious. Xiao Jin, I don't like to play with my phone. She occasionally played with it, but most of the time, she was in a daze. The day passed. Besides, they were still in the cave. Time passed so quickly in the plot, so time passed quickly outside. Xiao Fei, if it was in the past, Xiao Fei would have praised a young person who didn't play with his phone. But now, Xiao Fei felt that it was too shocking. I understand that you don't like to play with your phone. You're a good child, but you have to tell me where you go at any time. You can't let me worry. You're such a delicate young lady. You can't do anything. Mommy is so afraid that you'll be sold to the mountains to be someone's wife. If you don't work, they'll beat you and scold you. Whoa whoa whoa. The TV series I watched 2 days ago was. Xiao Fei began to complain endlessly about Xiao Jin's disobedience, interspersed with Mu Xiangshan's, when did she give you the illusion of being weak, and finally, he gave up struggling and sighed, you really can cry. Xiao Jin laughed when she heard that. Xiao Fei, Mom is crying right now, how can you still laugh? Jin, you're heartless. Xiao Jin, in the end, Xiao Fei even reminded him. You should at least give your uncle Zhenming a call. You haven't seen him for a few days and he's been worried sick. You didn't even go to the company. Why are you always so worrisome? Xiao Jin, yes, I'll give him a call. Xiao Jin hadn't spoken to Mu Zhenming alone on the phone yet. Now that he called him, he explained the situation. Mu Zhenming couldn't reprimand him, but he sounded a little unhappy. Xiao Jin, even if you don't care, we should at least care about your mother. She's been crying at home every day. You can't keep leaving without saying goodbye and not giving us any news for a few days. You have to know that you're far away. If something happens to you and we can't get any news, your mother and I won't know at all. Xiao Fei only knew how to grumble and complain. She didn't scold Xiao Jin. Hence, he only scolded her lightly every time. This time, even Mu Zhenming was a little dissatisfied. Chapter 543. In the past, Xiao Jin might not have cared about their thoughts at all. This time, she paused and listened to Mu Zhenming. Then she said, I know I was wrong. Since they were family, they must be anxious. In the past, she was alone. Now that she had a family to feed, it was appropriate to express the concern between family members. They were anxious because they were really worried about her. Hearing her apology, Mu Zhenming couldn't blame her anymore. He could only sigh deeply. Don't do this again. If it were Musilian, his leg would be broken when he went back. Xiao Jin agreed obediently. Compared with the impatient Xiao Fei and Mu Zhenming, Musichu and Mu Xiangshan were much calmer. Song Yanqing took her back to the Mu family first before returning to the Song family. As soon as they arrived home, Xiao Fei screamed excitedly when she saw Xiao Jin. She hugged Xiao Jin and looked her up and down. She was worried like an old mother. You've lost weight. She had lost weight in 5 days. Xiao Jin said, no. She knew best whether she had lost weight or not. Xiao Fei said, I said you've lost weight. You look at yourself every day. How can you tell? Xiao Jin, after entering the house, Grandpa Mu took the fishing rod and was about to go fishing. When he saw them, he just glanced at them casually. You're back. Then he left. Anyway, he wasn't worried about Xiao Jin. Xiao Fei was a little unhappy. Your grandfather didn't even ask where you went these days. He doesn't care about you at all. Xiao Fei's complaint was from the standpoint of a mother. Xiao Jin smiled and said, because he knows I'll be fine. I went with Song Yanqing. You don't believe in me, but you believe in the Song family. If I'm missing, you can ask the Song family for me. Xiao Fei. She was afraid that the Song family would ask her for Song Yanqing after he disappeared. This girl was quite worrying. Xiao Fei felt that Xiao Jin had lost weight, so she asked the kitchen to make a tonic soup for her. Xiao Jin, on the other hand, was searching for television dramas in the living room. Fei, are there any dramas that you watch that are more melodramatic? Xiao Fei, on the other hand, was very self-aware. What I've seen are all melodramatic. Xiao Jin was silent for a moment, and then said, the more melodramatic, the better. For example, it should be a mystery or something like an ancient film, and it should also have some fantasy elements. Yes. Xiao Fei happily pushed a TV series for Xiao Jin. This was an ancient Xuanhuan drama. The background story was about a destined goddess who descended to the world to save the world. The story had a male lead and a male supporting character. The supporting male hated the male lead very much and did not allow the male lead to get close to the female lead. The audience thought that the supporting male loved the female lead so much that he could not extricate himself. The supporting male was the father of the female lead in his previous life. He reincarnated with his memory and did not allow anyone to get close to his daughter. It was worth mentioning that the female lead in this drama was older than the supporting male. Xiao Jin looked at the ending found on the internet. She fell silent about Xiao Fei's enthusiastic recommendation. Perhaps she had used the wrong adjective. She turned off the TV and said calmly, Fei, I don't want to watch TV dramas for the time being. Xiao Fei was puzzled. You didn't want to watch it. Forget it if you don't want to watch it. Mom is interested now. I'll watch it again. Xiao Jin, she went upstairs. She thought that she had indeed stood too high before. She did not understand the world thoroughly enough. It was more appropriate for her to ask Song Yanqing for analysis. Chapter 544. There was a piece of news from Jiang City. An ancient tomb that had existed for 1,000 years had been discovered at the foot of Nanling Mountain. It was just an ordinary ancient tomb. There was nothing inside except for a coffin. It was a very ordinary piece of news. News of ancient tombs like this could be heard all over the country every day. It was not a large tomb, so there was no need to pay attention to it. But there was one thing that the officials did not disclose. Many people had died in this ancient tomb. From the past to the present, across 1,000 years, there were hundreds of skeletons in the ancient tomb. This was too shocking. The key was that the local investigation bureau did not know the reason at all. And the latest batch of dead people was actually from the modern era. Were they grave robbers? This news was not announced, but a group of experts were sent to investigate. According to the local explanation, before this, no one knew that there was an ancient tomb below. It was clearly a concave cave in the past. There was no entrance, so the appearance of this ancient tomb was somewhat strange. Strange or not, someone needed to investigate. In this matter, many people had died. Ah Zhu was also dead. This was the Feng family's right-hand man, and then a group of people they had planted in the spirit group. This array did not seem to have any lethality, but it was fatal. Unfortunately, all their previous efforts were wasted. Xiao Jin saw Guizhou's message for him on the cat treasure. Anonymous buyer XX, I can't go back, right? Guizhou had asked Xiao Jin for fortune-telling. Xiao Jin said that he could not get a promotion and a raise, so he definitely could not. This matter was hidden from the spirit group. The spirit group did not know either. But some of the higher-ups in the spirit group must know that so many people had died. Even Ah Zhu was dead, and many people from the spirit group had died. But Guizhou, who was not very important, was still alive. If he went back, he would definitely be investigated. And Milo would not let him go. Milo's plan was probably not to let those people from the spirit group go back alive from the beginning. So now that Guizhou knew, he sent a message to Xiao Jin. He was a little annoyed and a little desperate. If he could not go back to the spirit group, what would he do? Today, you know it yourself. Guizhou's heart turned cold. Anonymous buyer XX, do you know where we are going? Today, how would I know? Even if Xiao Jin went, he couldn't tell a stranger. It was already unexpected that Guizhou could come out alive. What happened next would cause a huge commotion. Mi Luo had brought so many people from the spirit group to Rivertown, but only a few of them returned. Most of them were people that he had brought with him. The spirit group would definitely be suspicious. No matter how stupid he was, he would not allow the early family to be so arrogant in China. Milo probably did not intend to pursue Joanna's matter from the beginning. It seemed that they knew very well that the person who killed Joanna had nothing to do with the spirit group. Guizhou could only close the dialogue box miserably. He had no idea what kind of place he had gone to or what kind of situation he had encountered. He switched off his phone. He could only stay in Jiang City for the time being and see if he could find a chance to sneak back. After Azu's body was transported back to the Feng family, the Grand Ancestor saw everything and closed his eyes deeply. He gritted his teeth and said, Milo. Once Azu died, he was the only one left in the Feng family. This was completely different from what they had agreed on. Not only did Mi Luo deceive the spirit group, but he also deceived the Feng family. Chapter 545. With Azu's death, the Feng family was in a panic. Most importantly, Milo was also missing. He didn't follow the team back to the capital. It seemed that he knew what he had done. Now that they didn't get the array point and many people had died, things were more complicated. He would definitely hide in secret. The spirit group couldn't catch Milo openly except in secret. So even if he hid in a city in China, no one would know. Of course, the spirit group suffered a great loss with so many people dead. The people below weren't stupid. The higher-ups of the spirit group had to at least give them an explanation. Because of this, the spirit group fell into a state of panic. He Yao was one of them. Among the people who followed Milo to Jiang City, there weren't any of her people, but there were her friends. Although they rarely contacted each other in private, He Yao was in disbelief when she learned that the other party had died in an accident. Aside from their identity as spiritual psyche masters, they all had families. In the past, if something happened, at least everyone would know. But this time, the spirit group refused to say anything, which made He Yao suspicious. She thought of Milo who came to the capital last time. Now that Milo was also missing, wasn't it obvious that the early family was behind this? She thought about it and felt that something was wrong, so she wanted to ask Xiao Jin more about it. Xiao Jin agreed to meet her without hesitation. The two of them met in an elegant and secluded cafe. When Xiao Jin saw her, he sat down and said, "You don't have to be so anxious. This is a good opportunity for you." He Yao was dumbfounded. A good opportunity? Why is it a good opportunity for me? Xiao Jin sat down and said to her, "You don't need to know where those people went. You only need to know that they are indeed dead. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened in the spirit group. Those people were used as scapegoats. What you need to do now is to bury your doubts and listen to the spirit group. This way, people will pay attention to you. Many of their members have died this time. They will definitely promote a new batch to shut the mouths of the people below. He Yao, it's possible for you. Promotion. In the past, He Yao would have been happy to hear that she had been promoted. However, now that she had become suspicious of the existence of the soul group, she was somewhat unhappy. Even if I don't get promoted, those people are still dead. Then let them die a worthy death. Xiao Jin stirred his coffee with a spoon. I know what you're thinking now. You think that the spirit group is lying to you by hiding the existence of the formation master. But in reality, the spirit group was established with good intentions. This society needed an organization to maintain stability. If there was no one to control the spiritualists, the world would be in chaos. Under this premise, the spirit group is controlled by the various large families. Actually, there is a division of interests. But, at least on the surface, they seem to be an organization that must exist. I need you to be promoted. The higher you climb, the more likely you'll be able to change the current situation of the spirit group. And, I'll help you. He Yao was stunned for a moment. You want me to be a spy? Xiao Jin said, the word spy isn't appropriate. That's under the premise that the spirit group needs to be disintegrated. I only need you to climb to a higher position. Then, you'll have the right to speak. You'll be able to change the current situation of the spirit group. As for me, I need to know where the demonic spirit seeds are kept. Chapter 546. He Yao, so you still need me to be a spy. Xiao Jin. You can think of it that way. He Yao thought for a while and then agreed. Okay. Xiao Jin laughed. Aren't you afraid that I have a worse purpose? He Yao, with your strength, even if you want to, can I stop you? She saw through Xiao Jin's existence very clearly. Xiao Jin nodded and lowered his head to take a sip of coffee. He Yao was too easy to worry about. After He Yao and Xiao Jin finished talking, she returned to the spirit group. Indeed, it was useless for her to have doubts. It was better to follow Xiao Jin's words and climb to a higher position to know more of the truth. She already had enough qualifications. She just lacked the opportunity. At this moment, Mu Jinming suddenly called her and asked where Xiao Jin was. Xiao Jin said that he was playing outside. He asked a few questions and didn't say anything. Xiao Jin felt that Mu Jinming's attitude was wrong. After checking, he found a hot news. The ground of a large factory in Huqing had collapsed. It was holiday time at that time. A group of employees who stayed behind ran out when they realized that something was wrong. After almost all of them ran out, the ground of the entire factory directly collapsed. A few leaders who slept too deeply and didn't escape died. This news seemed quite inexplicable and made people wonder if it was an unlucky year. However, when Xiao Jin saw that it was a business under the Feng family, he understood what was going on. With Ah Zu's death, the Feng family couldn't be supported by the ancestor alone. Now that the backlash was serious, a large-scale accident had already occurred. The Feng family's factory was a large factory that produced important goods. It had transactions with many companies around the world and had tens of thousands of employees. The annual output of the factory could reach tens of billions of yuan. There was also a lot of equipment inside that was very valuable. This destruction was equivalent to destroying a mountain of gold. If an ordinary accident happened, it could be salvaged. However, the ground collapsed and the factory was completely destroyed. Even the foundation was destroyed. This loss was real and tangible. This time, the Feng family could be said to be completely dumbfounded. When something happened earlier, it could be said that something was wrong. Now that the Feng family directly lost hard assets, even if the grand ancestor didn't say it, they should feel it. The Feng family was suffering a backlash. As for the fate of the Feng family, some people knew about it, while some didn't. They couldn't possibly tell everyone about it. Phoenix Qian was one of those who didn't know. He could only feel that the atmosphere in the house was very wrong recently. Everyone's face was incomparably gloomy, as if something big was about to happen. He knew about the accident at the Feng family's factory. When his mother mentioned it, he only said, "Isn't it too unlucky?" He felt that something was wrong. When he went to see his cousin, Song Yanqing, at the Song Yanqing's house, he told him about it. He frowned and only said, "Brother, I feel that something is wrong with the Feng family recently." Song Yanqing was holding an English book. He didn't even raise his head. He was like an elegant young master from a famous family. His tone was so gentle. "Oh, what do you think is wrong?" "Recently, a lot of people in our family have had accidents." Phoenix Qian thought for a while and swallowed. "Since Feng Yibing's death, our family seems to have been cursed. Many brothers and sisters have had accidents one after another. Their investments in the stock market have begun to fail. Now, even the foundation of the company has begun to have accidents." Chapter 547. Song Yanqing raised his eyes and put down the book. There was a deep smile on the corner of his lips. Was the Feng family's luck good before? After Song Yanqing's reminder, Feng Qian realized that something was wrong. In the past, everything went smoothly for the Feng family. Even if the younger generation in the family was not promising, at least it went smoothly. He had never heard of any failure. Especially the outstanding few, they were successful in everything they did. For children like them, the resources they had were different. Naturally, they enjoyed different things as well. Even Feng Qian himself felt that he was particularly lucky in everything he did. Even when he played dice with people in the bar, he basically never lost. Now, he felt that something was wrong. Everything seemed to have been turned around. He had heard his mother talk about some strange places in the Feng family before. Now his heart jumped and he had an ominous premonition. He subconsciously asked Song Yanqing, "Brother, is there something wrong with us?" Song Yanqing stood up and rubbed the corner of his eyes. "No, you don't have to worry too much." He walked to the bookshelf and put the book in his hand back to its original position. Instead, he began to look for something along the bookshelf. While looking, he naturally asked Feng Qian, "Aunt and uncle, how long have they been married?" 25 years. Feng Qian subconsciously replied. Feng Qian's parents were also a pair of beautiful stories in the circle. 25 years, there was not even a little bit of gossip about Feng Qian's father. Everyone said that his father hid well. After all, it was in a chaotic place like the Feng family. However, there was really no trace of him. Every day, when he came back from work, he immediately went home. He was deeply in love with his mother. Their relationship was even better than the father and son relationship. Feng Qian didn't know why his cousin suddenly asked this question. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes and thought carefully. Then he said, "What I told you, don't tell Aunt for the time being. If there is anything, you can tell Aunt. There are some things that you should let go of." If you have the chance, you can tell your father this. Feng Qian'en's pupils shrank. He had always felt that his cousin was not simple. Although his body was weak when he was young, and there were rumors that he almost died some time ago, but after he came back to life, he always felt that his cousin had undergone a huge change. He was still the same person, but it felt like, somehow, he became even more mysterious. There was always an ethereal aura around him. In other words, if his cousin said that he was an otherworldly expert, he would definitely believe it. He asked, "Brother, do you know something?" Song Yanqing stopped rummaging and his fingers paused. He turned his head and smiled gently. "What do you think I know?" Phoenix Qianen, even if he knew, he wouldn't say it. Phoenix Qianen didn't like people hiding things from him, but the person was his cousin. He knew that there was a problem, but he didn't dare to ask. He could not help but feel a little worried. What did cousin mean by that? What did he want to let go of? Why did he have to tell his mother? Feng Qianen, brother, why don't you tell me yourself? Song Yanqing said, "You are her son, and I am just her nephew." Some words had to be said by the person closest to you. Only then would it be somewhat convincing. Song Yanqing had already warned his aunt once. If she didn't believe him, he couldn't say it again. Chapter 548. Is that so? Feng Qianen was still a little confused. Song Yanqing naturally changed the topic. Have you gotten the person you like? Hearing him suddenly mention this, Feng Qianen subconsciously replied, "Not yet." He wanted to cry and laugh. She really only treats me as a younger brother. It was his fault for finding the wrong excuse to get close to her. Fan Jin was old and had no interest in little puppies. She was also injured. Now, she just wanted to meet a suitable mature man to spend the rest of her life with. She didn't think about Feng Qianen at all. She only treated him as a younger brother. Feng Qianen thought and said, "Do you remember Jiang Qinji we met at the restaurant last time? I suspect that Fan Jin knows him. When we met last time, I felt that there was something wrong with her expression." Song Yanqing nodded. Yes. He wasn't very interested in these topics. Feng Qianen knew that his cousin wouldn't be interested in his feelings. He asked, "Brother, what about you? You're 25 years old. Don't you have anyone you like?" There was a trace of suspicion in his eyes. "I see that Qiao Jin is often by your side. Do you have feelings for her? Otherwise, how could Song Yanqing allow a girl to stay by his side so often?" Moreover, Phoenix Qianen heard that her cousin had gone to Jiang City with her this time. The two of them had lost contact for 4 to 5 days, and the Song family was almost worried to death. Song Yanqing just glanced at him and smiled faintly. "So?" Feng Qianen sighed as expected. "Do you really like her?" His brother had been pure for 25 years. There was actually a time when he was enlightened. The key was that the person he was enlightened with, Feng Qianen thought of something and suddenly became interested. He turned his body. "Hey, brother, is she also a child of the Ji family? Is she Ji Qiue's daughter? I heard that their family stole the dragon and swapped the phoenix. Isn't Ji Fanjing the son of Ji Qiue's mistress wife? Qiao Jin is." Song Yanqing's smile was flat and didn't even seem to change. He just looked at Feng Qianen and said in a very gentle tone, "Do you have so much to say?" Feng Qianen. He was unhappy. Didn't he just say something about Qiao Jin's mistress mother? This was the truth. "My cousin is too protective of me," Phoenix Qianen thought sadly. However, he shut his mouth and didn't dare to open it again. His brother had been like this since he was young. Even if he was unhappy, he would not show it. Instead, he would smile more gently than anyone else. Fictional had seen some perverted games before. The perverted murderers would smile at you when they handed you a knife. This kind of person was even more terrifying. Of course, his brother was not that perverted, it was just that it still made people feel chilly. He talked about these things with his brother and temporarily forgot about the troubles in the Fong family. He didn't expect to receive a call just as he was about to leave. Just listening to what was said on the other side of the phone, Phoenix Grace's face suddenly changed and stood up. What? Song Yanqing looked over. Phoenix Qian'an's expression quickly became a little flustered. His tone was a little hurried. Where are you hurt? After the other party said something, he quickly said, Okay. I'll be right back. Give me the address of the hospital. After hanging up the phone, Song Yanqing immediately asked, Who had an accident? Fong Qian'an looked at him and couldn't help but panic. Brother, my dad had an accident. He had a car accident. Song Yanqing. His brows furrowed slightly, but they quickly smoothed out. Chapter 549. Since Fong Qian'an said so, it meant that it wasn't a fatal thing. Sure enough, Fong Qian'an continued, he hit his leg. I don't know how he is now. I have to wait for the results. I'm going to the hospital. Brother, are you coming? Since something happened to his uncle, he definitely had to go and take a look, so he nodded. Fong Qian'an took Song Yanqing to the hospital. The hospital was under the Song family. Song Yanqing used to come here often, but now he didn't come much. In the hospital's VIP ward, Fong Qian'an's father, Fong Linming, was lying there with one leg in a cast. When Fong Qian'an and Song Yanqing arrived, Song Yanqing's aunt, Song Henning, and Fong Qian'an's sister, Fong Qianshui, were already there. When the two saw Fong Qian'an, they both called out, Qian'an. When Song Henning saw Song Yanqing, a smile appeared on her tired face. Yanqing, you're here too. Song Yanqing nodded and walked over to ask, how is uncle now? Fong Qian'an rushed over and wailed, Dad. Fong Qianshui was a little annoyed. Dad isn't dead yet, don't cry. As soon as she finished speaking, she was glared at by Song Henning. Song Henning then answered Song Yanqing, a little worried. During the car accident, the debris cut his hamstring and it was completely broken. Now that he had an operation, the doctor said that because the problem is too serious, even if he can walk after being stitched up, he can't do strenuous exercise. During this period of recovery, it will take several years. After she finished speaking, she sighed again. Where did this unlucky thing come from? Fong Qianshui said indifferently, there have been a lot of uncles in the family recently, and Dad didn't escape either. Song Henning frowned. What nonsense are you talking about? After Song Yanqing learned of the situation, he comforted her. Aunt, don't worry. It's fine as long as uncle is fine. These words were already comforting. It was better than him not being alive. It seemed that Xiao Jin's words really came true. Fong Linming had been in the Fong family for so many years. Although he enjoyed everything in the Fong family, he had also done a lot of good things. His merits and demerits offset each other, and karma didn't take his life. At least there was still a chance to recover, which was better than anything else. Fong Linming hadn't woken up yet. Song Yanqing glanced at him a few times, then looked at Song Henning and said, Uncle, have a good rest recently. I think the Fong family is in troubled times recently, so it's better to take this opportunity to recuperate. Song Henning looked at Song Yanqing and hesitated. She still remembered that this nephew had hinted at something to her. She had also been in the Fong family for so many years, so she had heard some rumors. People outside all said that the reason why the Fong family was so lucky was because they did dirty things behind the scenes. Everything was stolen from other people. They would all suffer retribution. She used to think that it was just nonsense that outsiders were jealous of their good luck. Now, the Fong family had one incident after another. Even if it was not retribution, people had to believe that there was something wrong with the Fong family. No one could have so many incidents in such a short period of time. It was like the things that had never happened in the Fong family before, but now they all erupted in one breath. She used to think that the luck of the entire Fong family was abnormally good. Now, her husband also had an accident. Her husband had done good deeds all his life. She really couldn't imagine that this kind of thing would happen to her husband. This nephew really wanted to know something, but she couldn't ask in front of her children. After all, some things were too hard to believe. Chapter 550. Feng Qianshui looked similar to Feng Qianan. Feng Qianan had the appearance of an obedient and sunny guy. Feng Qianshui also looked obedient and cute, but she also looked cold. Just from the way she frowned when looking at Feng Qianan, it could be seen that she was not to be trifled with. She was Feng Qianan's twin sister, but she was more outstanding than Feng Qianan. Seeing that her father had an accident, she did not feel much sadness. Instead, she felt relieved. She looked at Song Yanqing and suddenly blinked. "Cousin, can we talk?" Song Yanqing looked at Feng Qianshui and nodded with a faint smile. The two came to the door of the ward. Feng Qianshui looked at her cousin who was as cold as the bright moonlight. She took a deep breath and asked, "Is the Feng family suffering retribution now?" Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a smile. "Why are you asking me this?" Feng Qianshui exhaled. "I think you know something. Brother, I want to ask, do you have an expert around you?" Feng Qianshui had been in the Feng family for so many years, so her perception was very sharp. However, she also knew to hide it. After all, she did not like the Feng family. "Song Yanqing, what do you want to say?" Feng Qianshui continued, "When the Feng family's uncles and our younger brothers and sisters started to have accidents one after another, I felt that something would happen to the Feng family sooner or later. Dad might not be able to avoid it. Actually." She lowered her head and looked inside the ward. She said to Song Yanqing, "Cousin, I have trusted you since I was young. What I said to you, don't tell Mom, okay?" Song Yanqing nodded. "Of course I won't." Feng Qianshui said, "When I was young, Dad quarreled with fifth uncle who came to our house as guests. I heard what they said. Dad said that there were some things that the Feng family could not do anymore. Otherwise, they would have to pay the price sooner or later. Fifth uncle and the others said that the Feng family would not pay the price. All the price would be paid by others. At that time, I was too young and didn't understand what it meant. Only now do I roughly understand. There are also people outside spreading." Feng Qianshui's smile was a little forced. "That's why I was worried about Dad when Uncle and the others were in trouble. Now that Dad is in trouble, I don't know why, but he only broke his hamstring and has a chance to recover. I actually feel very lucky. Because at least he was still alive." Recently, 2 of her uncles had met with accidents, and some had even been sent to prison. She didn't know if they could be rescued. Now the family was in a terrible mess. If it were not for the fact that Song Henning's family was powerful, she might have been affected as well. Because Song Yanqing was from the Song family, Feng Qianshui could trust him. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes. "It's useless for you to tell me this." Chapter 551. Song Yanqing didn't say too much to her. It was good enough that they had an understanding person in their small family now. Song Henning always listened to Feng Qianshui's words. If she blew a few words, Feng Linming would wake up and make his own decision. Feng Qianshui more or less understood Song Yanqing's meaning. She was even more certain that there was an expert by Song Yanqing's side. Because this was what Dad said. She just didn't know who that expert was. Qiao Jin was too young. Even if she stayed with Song Yanqing every day, unless they knew the truth, no one would think that she was the expert by Song Yanqing's side. While Qiao Jin was staying at home and watching the Feng family gossip, she received a special message in the shop. The other party was generous and offered the highest price of 99,999. Qiao Jin looked at the person and was immediately amused. Anonymous buyer XX, hello, master, I want to calculate my father's fate. Today, name, age. Anonymous buyer XX, Feng Linming, 53, is that all you need? Today, that's all. Today, what do you need to know specifically? Anonymous buyer XX. To be honest, something happened to my family recently, and my father seems to have been implicated. I want to know if there's a chance for him not to be involved in this matter, because it seems like he has already paid the price. Today, I suggest that your father leave this family. Anonymous buyer XX, Anonymous buyer XX, my family is very big. How can it be so easy to leave? There are too many things that are involved in this. Today, it's easy to leave a family. Money, power, connections, all cut off. Everything starts from scratch. Anonymous buyer XX, Anonymous buyer XX, I'm afraid that the others in the family won't let my father off. Today, dear, they can't even take care of themselves. How can they take care of your father? Today, that's all for the suggestion. I don't have any other suggestions. Other than your father, your family should also be careful. When Feng Qianshui saw this sentence, she immediately felt her hair stand on end. It meant that not only her father, but they would all be in trouble. Feng Qianshui was so scared that her back was drenched in sweat. She was resting on the sofa in the hospital when her face suddenly turned pale. Song Henning immediately looked over. Qianshui, what happened to you? Not feeling well. Feng Qianshui. I think so. The air conditioner is too cold. Mom, can I go and rest for a while? Song Henning waved his hand. Go ahead. I've already told you that someone will take care of your father. Just stay here for a while. If you're cold, put on more clothes. Don't catch a cold. Feng Qianshui nodded and turned to leave the ward. Qiao Jin found it interesting. It wasn't as if the Feng family didn't notice the problem. Of course, if it weren't for the fact that Feng Qianshui was Song Yanqing's cousin, she wouldn't have gotten involved in this matter. After all, she was a member of the Feng family. However, she revealed a thought-provoking smile. At this moment, the shop started ringing again. A business deal came in. She happened to be online, so she took a look. Anonymous buyer, Master, I would like to ask, does everyone live in this world have a purpose? Today, of course. Anonymous buyer, but I feel that my life is meaningless. Anonymous buyer, wouldn't it be better for someone like me to die? Today, customer, please tell me your difficulties. I will try my best to help you solve them. Anonymous buyer, but I'm so unwilling. I'm really unwilling. Seeing that this person's mood wasn't right, Qiao Jin pushed the array formation. The space between his brows shrank imperceptibly for a moment. Chapter 552. The person opposite her was committing suicide. Unlike the previous murder scene, this person wanted to commit suicide. Looking at her fate, it was also a very weak one. Qiao Jin had never been a spiritual mentor, and she didn't want to be one. She only said, don't want to live. The person on the other side typed very quickly. Anonymous buyer, I'm really desperate. I don't know the meaning of my life. Now that I'm dead, I'm not willing to die. I want to take them away before I die. Today, so why did you come to me for fortune-telling? The other party was silent for a long time. After 3 minutes, she slowly typed a reply. Anonymous buyer, is there a meaning to my life? Today, yes. Anonymous buyer, but I can't get out of the current situation. Today, you have to resist. Anonymous buyer, he will kill me. He will definitely kill me. Xiao Jin didn't reply. She was frowning and thinking. Because this was a dilemma. The girl opposite her was already an adult. She was bullied in school and abused by her father at home. Her mother could only watch in despair and couldn't save her. Now, her father still had wretched thoughts about her. She was deep in the whirlpool of despair and couldn't extricate herself. Today, you have to ask yourself whether you really want to die or live. After this sentence, the other party didn't reply. Xiao Jin cast the array and had a premonition that tonight would be the turning point of her fate. The people before her had all provided appropriate help. There was no reason to turn a blind eye to her. However, how far she could go was still up to her own choice. Xiao Jin couldn't completely interfere with her life. Everyone's fate ultimately depended on themselves. It wasn't something that others could interfere with. The buyer didn't reply. Late at night, Xiao Jin made a hand seal. He would go when the right time came. Meng Qingyu hid in her room. Her body was soaked in sweat, and her face was as pale as a ghost. She was wearing white pajamas and had a knife in her hand. This knife was supposed to end her life. She didn't want to come back this summer vacation. She didn't want to come back to this home at all. To her, this home was just an endless nightmare. It was as if the tragedy on the news had really happened to her. Her mother was too weak. When she was young, her father was determined to divorce her because of their relationship. Her biological father did not care about her at all. After her mother's new husband got married, he revealed his true colors. He pretended to be a gentleman on the outside, but behind his back, he was an out-and-out demon. As a child, Meng Qingyu could only watch on in despair, unable to save his mother. Her mother was weak and did not dare to divorce. When Meng Qingyu grew up, her stepfather began to beat her with all kinds of reasons. She had called the police, and the Women's Federation had visited her. Every time, the woman, whose eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life, would only hold on to the people who came to persuade her and cry. He's my husband. He's my husband after all. What can I do? You can't take him away. If you take him away, what will happen to me and my daughter? There were many times when she wanted to shout and ask him to be taken away. She would work hard. She would work hard to raise her and her mother. Why couldn't she make this man pay the price that he deserved? She was too young and her words carried little weight. She could only watch helplessly. Chapter 553. Her constant compromises and concessions only resulted in more severe beatings. He never knew how to restrain himself. Even the police became impatient when they called for help. Meng Qingyu understood them. Even if they really wanted to help, they couldn't do anything against her mother who would stop them from taking her husband away. There were people who suggested for them to divorce many times. He would say, "If you dare to divorce, I'll kill you. I'll kill your daughter." She was too young. She didn't know if that was the reason why her mother didn't dare to divorce him. But there were many times when she would rather die. She really didn't want to live anymore. The changes in her family made her feel inferior and slow. She didn't even dare to say that she was bullied in school. It wasn't until junior high that she realized that the man's gaze was getting more and more disgusting. She had some knowledge about it and started to panic and fear. She didn't dare to go home. She kept asking to stay in school. Even during the holidays, she would find all sorts of reasons to work and stay in the shop. She definitely didn't want to go home. Her mother didn't seem to know about all of this. She even asked her why she was so afraid of her stepfather. Did she really not know anything? What on earth was she thinking in her head? Meng Qingyu was going to university. She had no choice but to go home this time because her mother forced her to. She said that he had changed for the better. He didn't hit her anymore. He had changed. She told Meng Qingyu to trust him and get along well with him. She felt her entire body trembling. The first night she came back, she had an ominous feeling. She cried and held the knife. She really wanted to stab herself to death first. But she couldn't accept it. Why didn't the person who deserved to die? Why couldn't this man die first? Why didn't he get into a car accident? Why couldn't he be murdered? Why was he still alive? She just found a random place on her phone. She didn't want to get a fortune told. People always had a special thought before they wanted to end their lives. She just wanted someone to ask her if there was any meaning to her life. Why did some people have to experience the dirtiest and darkest things when they were born? She didn't understand what the master said at all. She wanted to fight back. How was she going to fight back? Suddenly, she heard a special sound. She knew that someone was touching her door lock. It was already 12 o'clock. It must be him, it must be him. Despair and fear swirled in the bottom of her heart. Her entire body began to tremble. She only felt that her brain was about to go numb. Waves of numbness surged to the top of her head. She held the knife and asked in a sharp voice, Who opened the door? The sound of the doorknob rattling incessantly was followed by a disgusting and oily voice. It's me. It's Daddy. I have something to tell you. Xiao Yu, open the door. It's already 12 o'clock. What are you doing here? If there's anything, we can talk about it tomorrow. I'm going to sleep. Of course, it was impossible for Meng Qingyu to open the door. She was holding the knife tightly. If anyone could see her, they would find that her eyes were wide open, her breathing was heavy, and her teeth were clenched so hard that they creaked. She looked a bit scary. Bitch, are you going to open the door or not? I have something to tell you. If you don't get up, I'll open the door and kill you. Of course, Meng Qingyu did not dare to open the door. She found her phone, and the screen was fixed on the interface of dialing 110. Chapter 554. If anything happened, she would not let him go tonight. Even if she died, she would make him die with her. She made up her mind. Holding the knife, her body was still trembling as she went to open the door. The moment the door opened, the person who was still banging on the door rushed in. He cursed and looked up to see Meng Qingyu holding a sharp knife in her hand. He was shocked and immediately retracted his hand. He took a few steps back and looked at Meng Qingyu cautiously. He cursed, You bitch, what do you want? Meng Qingyu was still afraid. It was impossible for a person to change in an instant. She was still afraid of this man from the bottom of her heart. At this moment, she could only force herself to summon up her courage and stare at him. What do you want to tell me? Tell me. The knife was still a little scary. Seeing Meng Qingyu's expression, her stepfather, and Jingsong, turned to the other side and cursed, You Shurong, why don't you come out and look at your bitch daughter? She's pointing a knife at me. What's the meaning of this? I raised her, fed her, and clothed her. Now you're going to kill me. Look at what kind of daughter you raised, you stinking whore. Meng Qingyu couldn't stand him scolding her. She shouted, you're shameless. I saved the money to go to university. You even took a part of it. You raised me when I was young. You haven't worked for years and relied on my mother. You bastard. Since they were about to shed all pretenses of cordiality, Meng Qingyu might as well start cursing. Her mother, Yu Shurong, heard the commotion and came out of the room worriedly. From her expression, she obviously knew about it and hid in the room, not daring to come out. Her actions made Meng Qingyu's heart turn cold. Yu Shurong only had the appearance of an ordinary woman. Because of the years of hard work, her body appeared especially short and small. She looked at Meng Qingyu embarrassedly. Seeing that she was holding a knife, she turned pale with fright. Xiao Yu, how can you hold a knife? Hurry up and give it to me. Don't treat your father like this, okay? Your father really just wants to say something to you. Yu Shurong slowly walked over. Although she was a little scared when she saw Meng Qingyu holding a knife, she still slowly approached. Seeing her like this, Meng Qingyu could no longer hold back his tears. He called out, "Mom." Tears streamed down Yu Shurong's face. "You child, come to your mother." She approached Meng Qingyu step by step. Meng Qingyu paused for a moment, probably because she saw that her mother was still a little aggrieved. The knife in her hand was taken by Yu Shurong. Yu Shurong turned around with the knife in her hand. "Can't you talk to her nicely?" Before he could finish his sentence, he saw An Jingsong rush up to him with a vicious look on his face. He pushed Yu Shurong away, walked over, grabbed Meng Qingyu's hair, and threw him into the house. Meng Qingyu screamed. Yu Shurong was also stunned after being pushed away. She subconsciously shouted, "What are you doing? Don't hit her." When Meng Qingyu was thrown into the room, her heart turned cold. She had a feeling of despair. She felt an incomparable pain on her scalp and a slap on her face. "Pa!" The sound was very loud and clear. Meng Qingyu panicked. She hurriedly shouted, "Mom, give me the knife." Chapter 555. Fuck, you dare to use a knife. You little bitch, do you want to stab me to death? He kicked Meng Qingyu in the stomach, and Meng Qingyu's face turned pale. Yu Shurong was scared out of her wits. When she was about to stop him, she seemed to have thought of something and threw the knife far away. Meng Qingyu's eyes widened in disbelief when she saw this. Yu Shurong came forward and hugged An Jingsong, trying to stop him. She couldn't stop crying. "Why did you hit her? She hasn't been back for so long. You can't hit her." However, she was too weak to stop him. An Jingsong pushed her to the side. An Jingsong panted and scolded her. "Wait until I'm done with this little bitch, then I'll deal with you. What kind of bitch are you? How dare you threaten me with a knife?" After saying that, he kicked Yu Shurong out. Yu Shurong curled up in pain. Meng Qingyu was dragged into the house by her hair. She struggled all over. Her left cheek was swollen, and she felt a burning pain. However, there was a pair of hands touching her body. She screamed and resisted. She couldn't stop crying. At this moment, her heart was full of despair. She really regretted not killing him just now. She really regretted living in this world. In a panic, she kicked An Jingsong's waist. His expression changed, and he slapped Meng Qingyu hard again. Then, he punched her stomach. She curled up in pain. This time, she had no strength to resist. An Jingsong began to tear her clothes. Meng Qingyu's face turned pale. She had no strength to resist. Yu Shurong, who was outside, couldn't get up. Seeing her daughter's miserable appearance, she could only cry and shout, "You bastard, you can't." Xiao Yu, Xiao Yu. At that moment, Meng Qingyu's hatred for this couple reached its peak. Why couldn't she resist? Why was her strength so weak? Why was it her who was so miserable and desperate in this world? Why couldn't she kill him? Why? She screamed and questioned herself in her heart. At that moment, there was a sudden burst of transparent energy waves around her. The surroundings trembled for a moment, and even the furniture in the house shook. And Jing Song, who was in a hurry, didn't notice that at this time, Meng Qingyu felt as if she had more power to control things. She subconsciously waved her hand, and with a bang, the phone that was placed in front of her bedside table flew over and hit on Jing Song's head. The force of the blow was so great that his head tilted to the side. "Fuck you, Yu Shurong." He turned around and found Yu Shurong still lying on the ground, unable to get up. The phone fell to the ground. It was a little lonely, but also a little eerie. Meng Qingyu was also a little confused as she felt something. She raised her hand again and the phone flew up in a wobbly manner. This time, not only in Jing Song, but even Meng Qingyu himself was shocked. She felt that there was some kind of connection between her and the objects around her. It was as if she only needed to move her mind, and those objects would move under her control. And Jing Song was so scared that he leaned against the door. He looked at the flying phone and Meng Qingyu's raised hand and gulped. "You. What are you?" The fear of the unknown finally caused him to fall into a state of panic. Meng Qingyu turned her head in an instant. She seemed to have understood something. Chapter 556. And Jing Song was about to run away when a strong force came and lifted him into the air. "You're a monster, you're a monster." He howled in fear. Yu Shurong, who was lying on the ground, screamed as if she had seen the most terrifying thing in the world when she saw him fly up. Meng Qingyu felt that it was still a little difficult to lift him up. She was already injured, and her whole body was in pain. Enduring the pain, she pushed and threw Jing Song away. Bang! He fell to the side of the sofa. The coffee table was pushed forward by him, and the things on it fell to the ground. Meng Qingyu stood up shakily. And Jing Song wailed and wanted to run outside. Meng Qingyu came to the door and waved his hand. A knife flew up from the ground and slid past Jing Song's shoulder at an extreme speed. It was just a little bit more and it would have slit his throat. And Jing Song screamed and fell to the ground, clutching his shoulder. Meng Qingyu saw this strange situation, but she did not feel afraid. She only felt a faint force fill her body, allowing her to control anything in the room. Yu Shurong looked at Meng Qingyu with a pale face and called out in a trembling voice, "Xiao Yu." In her cowardly eyes, there was the same emotion as when she looked at Jing Song. There was only fear. There was no kinship at all. Meng Qingyu's heart was cold. She looked at Yu Shurong with red eyes and asked her word by word, "Why did you throw the knife away?" Why? That was her only chance. That was her chance to kill Jing Song. Even if she had to go to jail for killing someone, she threw it away. She could not believe that her mother had destroyed this chance with her own hands. She knew that she could not do anything to Jing Song and destroyed Meng Qingyu's only chance. She was her mother. Meng Qingyu had always treated Yu Shurong as his only family. She chose to endure many things because of Yu Shurong. She endured it again and again, and now she had a cold heart. She hated Yu Shurong's cowardice, but she hated herself even more for being born in such a disgusting family. Tears streamed down her face as she said in a trembling voice, "You should have strangled me to death when you gave birth to me when I was young. You shouldn't have let me live like this." And Jing Song, who was at the side, was holding his shoulder. When he saw Meng Qingyu talking to her mother, he wanted to open the door and escape. However, he was discovered by Meng Qingyu. She rolled her eyes and waved her hand. With a bang, the door opened by Jing Song was slammed shut again. Half of his body had already squeezed out. Meng Qingyu reached out and grabbed him back. At the same time, he closed the door with his other hand. Meng Qingyu once again raised the knife, wishing she could kill Jing Song. Just as she was about to kill him with a single blow, a voice suddenly rang in her ears. There are plenty of opportunities to kill him. Why choose the most impulsive one? The voice was very soft and ethereal, as if it came from a very far place. Meng Qingyu turned around in shock and saw a girl in a white shirt and black pants standing by the door. She had an excellent figure, and her seaweed hair reached her waist. Her features were exquisite, and she was so elegant that she didn't seem like a real person. She was so beautiful that she seemed to have appeared from a legend. Meng Qingyu was dazed for a moment. She asked, "Who are you?" The girl smiled and said, "You just asked me if there was any meaning in your life." Chapter 557. Meng Qingyu's eyes widened. "You are," she was the master. Most importantly, she suddenly appeared in Meng Qingyu's house without making a sound. It was too ridiculous. Thinking of the ability she had just gained, Meng Qingyu was a little afraid of Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin didn't answer. He just pointed at the two people on the ground. "The neighbor has already called the police. Take care of this tonight and come find me at 9 tomorrow morning. I will tell you where you should go." She had really intended to come here to save them, but she did not expect to bump into another high-grade magus. He Yao was lucky. Every member of the spirit group was different. Now that He Yao was promoted, she had the opportunity to recruit a spiritual reader. It wasn't a dark one. Meng Qingyu awakened the ability to control spatial objects, which was much stronger than He Yao's ability to control metal. Meng Qingyu wanted to say something, but in the blink of an eye, Qiao Jin disappeared. It was as if it was just an illusion. She was stunned and turned to look. And Jing Song and Yu Shurong were staring at her as if they were having a stroke. Obviously, they saw it too. In other words, Qiao Jin wasn't an illusion. Thinking of the police who would come later, Meng Qingyu lowered her eyes and smiled coldly. Just like what happened in the past, now, she finally had the ability to make Jing Song beg for death. Qiao Jin called He Yao and told her that he met another high-level wizard. Amazing, He Yao didn't know what to say over the phone. She already got Lan Xiaoni last time, and now there was another one. Hearing Qiao Jin's words, the other party would most likely agree to follow He Yao. Qiao Jin said, "But this one has experienced some things. You can find out when the time comes. She hasn't been demonized yet, so it might not be easy to control. You have to pay special attention to her psychological condition." He Yao immediately said seriously, "I know. Every spiritual reader will receive psychological counseling when they come in." "You said her ability is to move spatial objects?" Qiao Jin said, "Yes, just like how you can control all metals, she can control anything within her sight, as long as it's moving. Of course, the bigger the object, the more difficult it is. But in terms of lethality, even if your entire team works together and gets rid of Lan Xiaoni, you still can't beat her. She didn't demonize, which is something worth celebrating. It means that she still has a bottom line in her heart. What we need to pay attention to is not to let her cross this line." He Yao was very happy. "I've already received a promotion notice. I'll soon become the head captain of a small team. This kind of small team can mobilize several spirit groups. If she joins, my power will be even stronger." "I still have to thank you." Qiao Jin smiled. "You're welcome. But her situation is special. She will contact me directly in most situations in the future." "Is that so?" He Yao didn't ask why and only said, "Okay." Qiao Jin thought about Meng Qingyu, and his expression was deep in thought. Meng Qingyu's awakening was not as simple as that. When Qiao Jin saw her, he discovered a wonderful point. Inside Meng Qingyu's body, there was an array point. It was alive and represented a person's array point. But she wasn't an array master. That array point was in Meng Qingyu's heart. Maybe it was related to her awakening, but Qiao Jin really didn't know what array point it was. Was it man-made, or a natural accident? Chapter 558. Ever since Qiao Jin awakened, although everything was under her control, there were some things that made her feel that something was wrong. The Rakshasa realm was inexplicably active. In that era, the Rakshasa realm rarely took the initiative to appear in the present world except for a few special circumstances. Because the two worlds were unrelated, if they wanted to appear, they would have to pay a big price. Now, there was something that she had never seen before, the characteristic of the formation point appearing in a human body. Perhaps it was because her consciousness had drifted for 10,000 years, and this world had developed some unexpected situations. But it didn't matter. If there were any accidents, all of this would come to an end. She would eventually understand, so she wasn't in a hurry. The backlash was not over yet. It was unwise for her to rush to understand everything now. The next day, Meng Qingyu stood at the door, somewhat at a loss. She didn't sleep the whole night. Last night, the girl said that she would find her at 9 o'clock. Then she remembered that the girl didn't say where she was. How was she going to find her? She had been running around the police station all night, and Jingsong was still detained inside. The situation last night was special. The quarrel was too intense, and the neighbor next door heard it and called the police. When the police came, Jingsong called her a monster. Her mother, Yu Shurong, was so scared that she didn't dare to say a word. She squatted on the ground and vented all her grievances and despair. She said that it was because Jingsong wanted to be vulgar to her that she resisted. Her face was swollen, and Yu Shurong was also injured. And Jingsong was only grazed by a knife, which was more in line with what Meng Qingyu said. It was self-evident who the police would believe. After all, this was the truth. The only difference was that Meng Qingyu suddenly awakened to become a spiritual reader halfway. Meng Qingyu insisted on detaining Jingsong and charging him with indecency, so the police didn't let him go for the time being. When her mother, Yu Shurong, returned home with her, she was like a frightened bird. When Meng Qingyu wanted to touch her, she ran away in panic. At that moment, Meng Qingyu seemed to understand something. She stood on the spot and revealed a mocking smile. It was really funny. She wasn't afraid of the man who had beaten her for more than 10 years. She wasn't afraid. What she was afraid of was her daughter who had been abused and almost molested. She had awakened an inexplicable power, but she had never thought of using this power to harm her. At that moment, Meng Qingyu didn't even dare to believe that Yu Shurong was his biological mother. However, their similar facial features had long since proven that they were indeed mother and son. However, Meng Qingyu would never be able to understand Yu Shurong's true thoughts. When they arrived at the entrance of the neighborhood, Meng Qingyu saw a taxi parked by the street. The window rolled down, revealing a delicate and indifferent face. She waved at Meng Qingyu. "Get in." When Meng Qingyu saw that it was her, she did not know why. She was clearly a stranger, but she felt incomparably at ease. Without hesitation, she got in the car and left with Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin brought her to a tea house with a quiet environment. Because Meng Qingyu's face was swollen, he had applied some ointment. At this time, it was still swollen and looked a little strange. Qiao Jin took a look and said, "It seems that the matter has been settled." Meng Qingyu shook her head. "Right now, that bitch is only temporarily detained. He didn't succeed in molesting me. It will be very troublesome to convict him. I have changed my mind now. I will let him out. When she lowered her head and said these words, she was filled with incomparable hatred. Chapter 559. Qiao Jin understood her thoughts. Even if she didn't understand, she couldn't say anything else to persuade Meng Qingyu after what had happened. If you couldn't stand in someone else's shoes, you wouldn't be able to empathize. Qiao Jin's indifference was the best explanation for this. She just nodded and poured a cup of tea for Meng Qingyu. It's good that you have your own ideas. The fragrance of the tea was pleasant. Meng Qingyu picked up the cup and took a sip. She was a little dazed. I don't know what to do now. I feel like my mother treats me like a monster. Qiao Jin didn't talk about this topic with her. He just said softly, so I'll introduce you to someone. As he said this, He Yao was brought in by the waiter. Qiao Jin explained to her about the spirit group. There's a very suitable home for someone like you. When He Yao came in, she saw Qiao Jin and Meng Qingyu talking. He Yao waved at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin. She then looked at Meng Qingyu and walked over gracefully. Hello, Meng Qingyu. I'm He Yao. Meng Qingyu was stunned for a moment, but she still subconsciously reached out to shake He Yao's hand. He Yao was a rather capable woman in the spirit group. Although she was sometimes confused in front of Qiao Jin, she had the image of a company manager in front of others. In front of Meng Qingyu, she was a capable and elite woman. He Yao sat down and smiled. You just awakened last night. We sympathize with your situation, but unless the awakened spiritualists are born with it, most of them have had a bad experience. Therefore, being a spiritualist is a double-edged sword. It's fortunate that you didn't turn into a demon. You're a very kind child. This was the first time Meng Qingyu heard someone praise her for being kind. She was a little stunned, but when she thought about what she had experienced, her expression became a little sad. He Yao knew what she had experienced. She had already investigated it thoroughly last night and had given her some time to recover. As soon as she received Qiao Jin's notice, she came over. She grabbed onto Meng Qingyu's matter. You've just experienced such a thing and need to receive psychological counseling. Let me first introduce the nature of our organization. After that, He Yao told Meng Qingyu about the spirit group in detail. After Meng Qingyu finished listening, the fresh feeling she got from another world washed away the haze in her heart. She was a little surprised. So our world is actually so exciting. Actually, it's not that exciting. He Yao sighed. It's not a good thing for a psychic to awaken or become a demonized psychic. It's all because they're stimulated. Meng Qingyu thought of the despair in her heart last night. She almost thought that the rest of her life was gone. At that time, she thought that since things had happened, she couldn't wait to kill An Jingsong and then die herself. Chapter 560. Meng Qingyu and He Yao talked for a long time. Qiao Jin listened quietly at the side. He Yao would take care of these things, so she didn't need to get involved. He Yao was going to take Meng Qingyu for counseling. When she was about to leave, Meng Qingyu glanced at Qiao Jin and suddenly asked, Master, do you think that there is karma in this world? Qiao Jin smiled faintly and stared at her. Maybe, maybe not. Meng Qingyu nodded. Qiao Jin looked at her back as she left. He Yao felt that it was a little strange. Later, she sent a message to Qiao Jin. He Yao, is she going to do something stupid? Qiao Jin, not really. It's a personal choice. He Yao, alright, this kind of thing was too profound. She would know what Meng Qingyu was going to do later. When Meng Qingyu finished counseling and returned home, it was already night time. The trauma of many years was not so easy to get rid of. The psychologist told her to report every week. After she left, as a special psychologist of the spirit group, he said to Hiyao, Meng Qingyu's psychological condition is actually not good. I did a psychological test on her. According to my evaluation of the psychological conditions of other spiritual readers, the degree of distortion in her heart has reached the level of demonization. It's surprising that she hasn't demonized. Hiyao was a little shocked. Reached the level of demonization? It can't be. Isn't she doing well now? I don't see any problems with demonization. Also, Qiao. I know people who said that she hasn't demonized. She spoke so quickly that she almost said Qiao Jin's name. The psychologist thought for a moment and said, I might be too general. Meng Qingyu has been traumatized by her stepfather for so many years. She has been oppressed by an inferiority complex for a long time. Her stepfather threatened her with domestic violence, and her mother was weak and ignored. She was also bullied at school, so her heart is very distorted. She also told me that the first thing she wanted to do was kill her stepfather, but someone appeared and stopped her. She didn't tell me who that person was. Hiyao blinked her eyes. She guessed that it was most likely Qiao Jin and said, continue to talk about her psychological condition. I'll investigate the rest. The psychologist nodded and didn't ask any more questions. He only said, however, there's not much point in stopping her. I've done a few tests and they all show that Meng Qingyu has a very strong vengeful mentality. Her psychological state is actually not suitable for her to join the spirit group at the moment. We've also conducted tests and found that she's an A-rank psychic. Once she erupts, it's very difficult to control her. I suggest that even if she joins the spirit group now, it's best not to let her go on missions for the next 6 months. No wonder Qiao Jin said to pay attention to her psychological state. However, Hiyao trusted Qiao Jin more. If Meng Qingyu couldn't control herself, Qiao Jin wouldn't stop her. The psychologist continued, the current situation is that when she returns home, she'll develop a vengeful mentality towards her parents. You have to pay attention to not let her have the thought of killing her stepfather again, unless she can completely control herself. Hiyao expressed her understanding, I understand. I'll pay attention to what you said. She's an A-rank psychic who hasn't demonized yet, so she's very important to the spirit group. Under normal circumstances, we have to capture this kind of talent. Even if there was a problem with Meng Qingyu, the one who contacted her was Qiao Jin. She really didn't know how to deal with big shots. Sigh. Chapter 561. Meng Qingyu returned home. It was already night time and the house was brightly lit. However, she could not feel any warmth in her heart. The lights in the house were on and Yushirong was cooking in the kitchen. Meng Qingyu realized that she could not open the door. Instinctively, she twisted the doorknob. However, the key was already inserted inside and could not be turned. It was either the lock had been changed or it was locked from the inside. Meng Qingyu knocked on the door and sounded surprised. Mum. Clang. The sound of a knife falling to the ground could be heard. It seemed like someone was frightened. Yushirong was at home. Meng Qingyu lowered her gaze and used her ability to twist open the door. With a bang, she went in. When Yushirong saw the door open and Meng Qingyu return, she leaned against the kitchen table in fear. Meng Qingyu noticed that her hand was still bleeding. She frowned and immediately found a band-aid to go over. Mom, your hand, don't come over. Unexpectedly, Yushirong shrieked and shrank further into the kitchen. She looked at Meng Qingyu and said in a horrified tone, You're a monster, a monster. At that moment, Meng Qingyu felt as though her heart was being torn apart. She could not help but burst into tears once more. Her mother's words seemed to have disintegrated the entire day of psychological counseling. She said, I'm not a monster. Every single word was said to Yu Shirong. I'm your daughter. Your daughter. She yelled, I'm your daughter. I'm not a monster. I was too scared yesterday. I don't know why I have such an ability. Why did you call me a monster? I won't hurt you at all. Yu Shirong could only scream continuously. Her screams were so piercing that Meng Qingyu could not take it anymore and used her strength to seal her mouth. Ugh, 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 she could no longer scream and could only cover her mouth with her hands in fear. She could not control it at all. However, her body was free. At that moment, Yu Shirong's fear reached its peak. It was as though something in her brain had broken down and she broke down as she ran out. Meng Qingyu did not stop her. Yu Shirong bumped into her body and ran out. She was knocked into a daze. Tears streamed down her face as she looked out of the window again. Not a single one of the lights could bring her warmth. The neighbor next door quietly opened the door. When he saw Meng Qingyu, he asked softly, Qingyu, what happened? Last night, when the neighbors saw the situation, they called the police. They already knew what kind of treatment Meng Qingyu received. Last night's incident had spread throughout the neighborhood. It was too terrifying. How could such a good child suffer such a thing? Meng Qingyu shook his head and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. When he smiled again, his eyes were a little cold. I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. My mother ran out. I'll go after her. She closed the door and left in the direction her mother had run. However, after searching for an entire night, he still couldn't find his mother. She hadn't slept for 2 days, and her exhausted body couldn't take it anymore until the police called. Miss Meng. Is Yu Shirong your mother? We found her on Dongshan Street. She doesn't seem to be in her right mind. Can you come and pick her up? When Meng Qingyu heard this, he forced himself to stay awake. His eyes became colder and colder. Okay, I'll be right there. Chapter 562. Meng Qingyu had personally sent her mother to a mental hospital. She had gone mad. No matter what, if Meng Qingyu hadn't driven her mad, she would have lost all hope for this woman. She had gone mad because of herself. After so many years of being abused by Jingsong, she hadn't gone mad. Instead, she had gone mad because of her own daughter. How laughable. Perhaps she had long been abnormal. Meng Qingyu thought of the knife she had thrown out. In fact, she had thrown out Meng Qingyu's heart at that time as well. After settling her mother's procedures, she took all the money in the house. Actually, it wasn't much at all. It was only a few thousand yuan. The money that she had sent back from her job in school had all been spent by Jingsong. This money was paid by He Yao in advance. Even if He Yao lent it to her, she could use it in the future. Her salary in the spirit group was low. The spirit group's salary wasn't low and the treatment was good. Every time they caught a demonized spiritualist or found a spiritualist, there would be a reward. Furthermore, the spirit group helped spiritualists find proper jobs. The benefits were definitely good. Meng Qingyu wouldn't have anything to worry about. She could live her own life. That afternoon, Meng Qingyu went to the police station to withdraw the charges against Jingsong. Even though the police were in disbelief, they couldn't do anything about it. One of the female police officers even said that if there was anything, Meng Qingyu must contact her immediately and left her personal number. Meng Qingyu was still very touched. In this world, other than evil people, there were always good people. However, it was too late for her to enjoy it. And Jingsong was still going to be detained for 7 days. However, when he received the news, he wasn't happy at all. In fact, he was so scared that he knelt down and begged the police, "Please don't let me out. That girl is a monster now. A real monster. She can fly with a wave of her hand. If I go out, I won't be able to survive. She wants to take revenge on me. Please don't let me out. Lock me up, lock me up. And Jing Song was truly frightened. This was because he had witnessed many bizarre things. The unknown was fear. Right now, he only knew that Meng Qingyu could kill him like a chicken. If it was the Meng Qingyu of the past, he wouldn't have cared if she resisted. Earlier on, the police even said that his wife had gone mad and was sent to a mental hospital because of him. And Jing Song didn't believe it. She must have been scared out of her wits. She could even lay her hands on her own mother, let alone him. Of course, the police didn't believe him. They were even disgusted by him. How many times have you been in here? Which one of them wasn't for causing trouble and beating your wife and children? With your character, it's already good enough that you found a wife. Why are you still so unsatisfied? Are you even human? You still want to do that to your own daughter. She's not your biological daughter, but she's been with you for more than 10 years. How can you be so shameless? Now you're still talking nonsense about her. You're going to ruin her chastity. Let me tell you, if you dare to do anything outside, you'll be punished by the law if you come back. And Jing Song was drenched in cold sweat. He had an inexplicable premonition that after he left, he would never have the chance to return. Although going to prison wasn't a good thing, if he didn't come back, it meant that he would die. Even though he was wailing in the detention center, no one paid any attention to him. Everyone treated him as a lunatic. To be able to do such a thing, he was definitely not a normal person. Chapter 563. When Qiao Jin was watching TV at home, he heard Mu Zhenming talking to Mu Xiangshan. Something happened to the Feng family again. If Mu Zhenming could talk about it, it must not be a small matter. He mentioned it to Mu Xiangshan and said, the Feng family's industrial base in Shanghai caught fire. The entire material warehouse was burned down, and several people died. Now, more than a dozen of the Feng family's higher-ups have been fired because of continuous dereliction of duty. The Feng family is now having problems again and again. I don't know who they offended. Qiao Jin paused for a moment. Qiao Fei brought her a bag of potato chips. Why don't you go into your room to watch TV? She also had a TV in her room, but she wanted to snatch it from the living room. Qiao Fei liked to watch TV in the living room. It was big and spacious. But it was better to watch TV. If Qiao Jin watched it first, she liked to watch the history of evolution or the origin of the human world. It was apes, orangutans, and the scenes of the end of the world thousands of years ago. How could Qiao Fei watch this kind of thing? She was very worried that Qiao Jin's brain had not recovered. Qiao Jin said, there's atmosphere. Qiao Fei, no, there was no atmosphere. Mu Xiangshan listened to Mu Zhenming's words and glanced at Qiao Jin without a trace. Mu Zhenming didn't notice and only heard Mu Xiangshan leisurely said, what other problems can there be? It's just retribution for doing too many bad things. It's only a matter of time before something happens. Was this fire set by someone else? Forget about the fire, the industrial base collapsed a few days ago. Do you think someone has the ability to do this? Mu Zhenming hesitated for a moment. After all, he was a firm materialist. He didn't dare to completely believe the rumors of the Feng family, but the Feng family was now strange. He only said, they probably offended someone who shouldn't be offended. Mu Xiangshan said meaningfully, with the power of the Feng family, even if they offended someone who shouldn't be offended, they can still get away with it temporarily. But look at this time, they have no power to fight back. In a few months, so many things have happened. Do you know how many people from the Feng family are in prison now? The kind that can't even be fished out. I estimate that there will be quite a few next year. TSK, the Feng family. Even if Mu Xiangshan was no longer in the mall, he would still know some information. The connections he had left behind in the past were not for fun. It was rare for Mu Jinming to discuss this kind of thing with his father. At this time, he put his elbows on his neck and crossed his hands. He was in deep thought. Dad, I heard that the Feng family got a fortune teller to change their fate. Is it related to this? Why don't you ask your cheap daughter about fortune-telling? Mu Xiangshan raised his chin at Qiao Jin. Isn't that a ready-made example? Mu Jinming's face darkened. Dad, Qiao Jin is just playing around. How would she know these things? Mu Xiangshan, then just pretend that she doesn't understand. Qiao Fei was still looking at Qiao Jin in a dilemma. Jin, where's your friend? Lord Song didn't ask you to go out today. Before Qiao Fei could speak, Mu Xiangshan spoke again. Hey, what's your daughter's relationship with Lord Song? Do they go out every day? Don't make it sound like there's something between the two of them. Qiao Fei, that's not what you said before. Qiao Jin said lightly, Song Yanqing has something to do these 2 days. I also have something to do. I'll go out when it's time. Mu Xiangshan, listen, they're still calling Song Yanqing. There's an 80% chance that they don't have a good relationship. Qiao Fei. Chapter 564. Mu Jinming rubbed his temples. Dad, don't meddle in the affairs of children. Mu Xiangshan said, it's your wife who is meddlesome. Qiao Fei curled her lips. What did I say? Qiao Jin doesn't go out to play all day. Girls should go out more often. Mu Xiangshan said, it's not right to go out all the time. Why didn't you say that when Muzilian was at home? Hey, Muzilian also has something to do in the army. Where's his phone? Mu Jinming nodded. He just went there for intensive training, so he didn't have time to call. They're only allowed to call their family members once a week. Recruits can only call once a month. Mu Xiangshan said, sigh, I miss him when there's no one at home. Mu Jinming said, you were the one who suggested joining the army. Mu Xiangshan said, nonsense, she's your wife. Qiao Fei. Mu Xiangshan picked up his fishing rod. I'm going fishing. At this moment, an announcement came from outside. Mr. Mu, Mrs. Ma is here with her son. Mu Jinming frowned. Mrs. Ma. Let them in. Qiao Fei was also stunned for a moment. Ma Ruyan. She didn't tell me she was coming. Mu Xiangshan suddenly sat back down. Mu Jinming glanced at him. Aren't you going fishing? Mu Xiangshan said, no hurry, I'll drink some water first. He was all smiles. Soon, Ma Ruyan came in with her son. Ma Ruyan was Qiao Fei's best friend who used to play mahjong. She even showed a photo of her son to Qiao Jin. It was a pity that Qiao Jin didn't like him. When Muzilian left, she even brought her son to visit, but Qiao Jin wasn't home at the time. Now, she was here again. Even Qiao Fei glanced at Qiao Jin guiltily. Qiao Jin's expression was indifferent. Coincidentally, the TV was showing the normal physical behavior of apes and monkeys. Qiao Jin watched it calmly. Qiao Fei suddenly exclaimed, "Ah, how can a child watch this?" As he spoke, he changed the channel of the television. He switched to the animation channel and saw that Peppa Pig was making pig noises. Qiao Fei, look at this. Qiao Jin, at this time, Ma Ruyan came in with her son. Their hands were still full. Qiao Fei, as the mistress of the family, politely greeted them. Ma Ruyan also respectfully greeted Mu Xiangshan and Mu Jinming. The man behind them was wearing a well-ironed suit. He was quite good-looking and looked very similar to Ma Ruyan. She smiled politely and greeted the 3 members of the Mu family in the room politely. Xiao Jin sat on the sofa and watched Peppa Pig without moving. When Ma Ruyan saw that Xiao Jin was at home, her eyes lit up. Xiao Jin is at home. Xiao Fei called out to Xiao Jin at the right time. Jin, get up. This is your Auntie Ma and Brother Chu. Xiao Jin stood up. When he turned around, his exquisite face fell into the eyes of the 2 people. The man named Chu Zikuan was stunned. Xiao Jin said indifferently, "Hello." Ma Ruyan smiled warmly. "Hello, Jin. Let me introduce you. This is my son, Chu Zikuan. You can call him Brother Zikuan." Xiao Fei, what kind of dream was she having in broad daylight? She didn't even call him brother at home. Xiao Jin gave a perfunctory smile and didn't say anything. Mu Xiangshan drank a mouthful of water. Ah, interesting. Chapter 565. Chu Zikuan saw Xiao Jin and reached out his hand politely. "Hello, Xiao Jin." Xiao Jin didn't answer. He just looked at Chu Zikuan with a faint smile. However, if you looked carefully, you would find that there was a deeper meaning in her clear eyes. It was a little cold, but there was something else. After looking at her for a few seconds, he couldn't help but feel guilty. Under such a gaze, Chu Zikuan's smile gradually stiffened and he withdrew his hand. Ma Ruyan quickly held her son's hand as if she didn't mind at all. "Jin is not familiar with you. It's the first time you've met. Take your time." Chu Zikuan looked at his mother and nodded slowly. But looking at the people in the room, his face only stiffened a little. Xiao Fei was still smiling like a fool. He asked them to sit down. Mu Jinming naturally had to greet the guests, but he frowned slightly. He could see Ma Ruyan's intention, but Xiao Fei didn't know that he had heard about it. He just didn't know why Ma Ruyan insisted on introducing her son to Xiao Jin. Xiao Fei had already declined several times. Of course, they were adults. They still had to maintain social etiquette on the surface. Mu Jinming greeted them with a natural smile. There was no problem at all. Ma Ruyan only looked at Xiao Jin. She smiled very kindly. "The last time we came, Xiao Jin didn't see us. It was a pity. Today, Xiao Jin is here. Zikuan has been studying abroad. I think Xiao Jin hasn't seen him. Your mother and I are good friends. Zikuan is also your brother. You can play together more in the future." No matter how naive Xiao Fei was, he could understand the meaning of these words. He forced a smile and didn't know what Ma Ruyan meant. Xiao Jin had rejected him very straightforwardly last time. Mu Xiangshan narrowed his eyes. "Ah, yes. Xiao Jin hasn't seen your son. Ruyan, I heard that your husband has been investing abroad recently. Did something happen?" Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan's faces stiffened. Ma Ruyan quickly reacted and waved her hand. "That's not true. Old man, where did you hear the rumor? My husband's investments are doing well. How could there be a problem?" Ma Ruyan smiled, and her tone was very respectful, as if there was really no problem. Xiao Fei suddenly realized something. Was this how it was portrayed in TV dramas? If her husband was in trouble, she would immediately look for someone to help her through marriage. But why was she looking for her Xiao Jin? He didn't know what was going on. Mu Xiangshan nodded. "Maybe I misheard. I'm old, so I'm hard of hearing. Maybe they were talking about someone else." Ma Ruyan could only reply with a smile. Chu Zikuan looked at Xiao Jin and asked, "Will you be in your 3rd year next semester?" "My university studies are pretty good. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I will definitely teach you seriously. Xiao Jin, younger sister. Who allowed him to call her that? Just as he was about to speak, the servant's voice came from outside again. Mr. Mu, Lord Song is here. Qiao Fei was a little surprised. Young Master Song Yanqing. The servant said, yes. Mu Zhenming immediately said warmly, please come in. Mu Xiangshan put down the thermos and sat up straight. Oh, thank goodness I didn't go out to play chess. Where else could I find such an exciting scene? Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan were a little confused. Young Master Song. He was a legendary figure. They didn't hear much gossip and had never seen Song Yanqing before. Chapter 566. Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan immediately had a bad feeling in their hearts. They couldn't say what was wrong, but they just felt that something was wrong. Until Song Yanqing walked in, Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan were both suffocating. The man who walked in was wearing a gold-plated silk shirt. This color was too specific. Ordinary people couldn't hold up to this color at all. However, when this person wore it, he, who was already full of nobility, looked even more imposing. Although he was gentle like jade, it couldn't block a unique aura. Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan were so oppressed that they couldn't even speak. There was only amazement and fear in their eyes. When they saw him coming, they unconsciously took a step back, as if they were afraid of blocking him. When Song Yanqing came in, there was a smile on his lips. He just glanced at Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan lightly and didn't put them in his sight. He looked at Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhenming and called them warmly. Grandpa Mu, Uncle Mu, Auntie Mu, I'm here to disturb you. His voice was low and clean, and people couldn't find any flaws. Chu Zikuan was suppressed by his aura and couldn't even speak at this time. He hadn't seen Song Yanqing before, but he had heard of him. Ma Ruyan had never seen Song Yanqing before. At this moment, she was suppressed by Song Yanqing's aura. She stared blankly at this immortal-like person, and then saw him turn to Qiao Jin with lowered eyebrows. Qiao Jin. These two words seemed to be a little different from the call just now. There was some gentleness, which made people's hearts beat faster inexplicably. Qiao Jin's reaction wasn't like before. He still looked indifferent, but there was more gentleness. Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan couldn't say a word. Qiao Fei turned around and introduced him to them with a smile. This is the young master of the Song family, Jin's friend. Mu Zhenming also said to Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing, if you have anything to say, go upstairs and talk. We'll entertain other guests first. His tone was very familiar. It indicated that Song Yanqing had a different relationship. Song Yanqing nodded and politely nodded to the crowd. I'm here to look for Qiao Jin today. Uncle, Auntie, please excuse me. Qiao Jin also brought him up. What they wanted to say couldn't be said here. Song Yanqing was very polite. He and Qiao Jin went upstairs one after the other. Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan were dumbfounded. Especially Chu Zikuan, his expression was very interesting. Song Yanqing was a godlike figure. They couldn't even catch up to him. They didn't expect him to have such a good relationship with Qiao Jin. Ma Ruyan could not help but ask Qiao Fei, is this the young master of the Song family? Which Song family? Qiao Fei was a little surprised. Do you know other people from the Song family? Of course, it's the Song family. In this circle, when the Song family was mentioned, it must refer to Song Yanqing's family. They were superior and were not on the same level as these people. Speaking of them, there was naturally no need to explain more. Ma Ruyan looked embarrassed. I heard that the young master of the Song family was weak and didn't go out often. Mu Xiangshan said leisurely, "What are you talking about? Being weak doesn't mean that he can't go out. It's not like he can't walk. What if he is heard by others?" Maureen's face turned pale. She didn't dare to offend the Song family. She and her son looked at each other, and their hearts turned cold. She had her eyes on Qiao Jin. She didn't expect that the young master of the Song family would appear now. Although the Mu family didn't say whether he was her boyfriend or not, how could ordinary friends explain their relationship? Chapter 567. Song Yanqing entered Qiao Jin's room for the first time. The pink and white tone was a little different from what he had imagined. However, he instantly realized that Qiao Jin didn't care about these things at all. Most of them were arranged by Qiao Fei. He pursed his lips into a faint smile. "It seems that I'm here at the right time. I just don't know if I've disturbed you." Qiao Jin glanced at him. "What did you disturb me about?" "You mean the two people downstairs?" She snorted out in laughter. "What sort of evil scheme is she up to? Isn't it all because her husband's investment fund was set up by someone else? She's got her sights set on me, hoping that the Mu family would step in to help her out with the marriage. Just her relationship with Qiao Fei alone isn't worth the Mu family's help." Song Yanqing narrowed his eyes and smiled. "That's a good idea." She didn't think about whether Qiao Jin would accept it or not. It seemed that she was too confident in herself. Qiao Jin said, "Her son is the one I told you about last time. He has a lot of love affairs and has to pay a big price. Even his studies are fake. Sometimes, I don't understand the thoughts of some people." It seemed that she was too confident. Maureen didn't seem to think about whether Qiao Fei would marry her daughter off or not. She thought that Maureen should have known what was going on since she had flatly refused her last time. She didn't expect that Maureen was really confident. There are all kinds of people in this world. Qiao Jin wouldn't pay attention to a person who wasn't presentable. Song Yanqing wouldn't do anything unnecessary. Moreover, he was now a spiritual master of speech and could begin to see the future of some people. When he glanced at Maureen and Chu Zikuan, he saw them hugging each other and crying bitterly. He expected that their future wouldn't be good. Song Yanqing would not have anything to do with such people. It was not in line with his style and identity. Qiao Jin took a fruit from his coffee table and gave it to Song Yanqing. Seeing that he didn't peel it, he took a knife and peeled it for him. "By the way, why are you looking for me?" Song Yanqing sat down beside her. "Miluo is currently missing. According to my sources overseas, the He Early family doesn't seem to have any reaction to this incident. I learned from some people in the He Early family that they have a great emperor leading them. However, this great emperor is very mysterious. He basically never appears in front of people, just like the Feng family's ancestor. However, the great emperor hides very well. I'm wondering if he will secretly sneak into China to meet up with Miluo." Qiao Jin said, "He won't come." Song Yanqing curled his lips. "Actually, I thought so too." "Since you're so sure, then my thoughts are correct." Qiao Jin nodded. Milo's plan failed, and the array point is missing. The great emperor knows that there are people in Huaxia who can deal with array masters. Even if he plans his own strategy, it's hard to guarantee that he won't fail miserably. Although he won't come personally, it doesn't mean that he won't send other spies. Moreover, array masters like this were people with special orders. Naturally, they could create spies. Perhaps one of the great emperor's spies had already come to Huaxia. Song Yanqing nodded and said gently, "Actually, there's one more thing. It's about you." Qiao Jin looked at him with some confusion. "About me?" She peeled the fruit and divided it into two halves. She handed one half to Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing just lowered his head and stared at it for a moment. Then, he reached out and took it. Chapter 568. The fruit was very sweet. Especially when she was skinny. He thought so in his heart, but his face was calm. Chai Yueli met Ji Fanjing's biological mother abroad. My informant followed them and found something interesting. That lover is now in the He early family. Qiao Jin, wow. Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin and found it funny. Her eyes curved. Don't you think things are getting more and more interesting? Qiao Jin nodded. It seems so. That means, not only did they support the Feng family in the country, but they also targeted other families. If this was a net, it would have been buried decades ago. Song Yanqing nodded. Then, with a clear and cold voice, he slowly analyzed, a family like the He early family is after nothing more than power. In this world, only power can move people's hearts. If they had a plan, there should be a lot of families in China that have been targeted. I just didn't think that it would be related to you. After all, Qiao Jin was the daughter of the Ji family. This was an indelible fact. Qiao Jin knew that the Ji family would bring trouble to her. Now that he thought about it, it was actually this kind of trouble. If that lover was the He early families, then the reason why she gave the child to Chai Yueli and didn't raise her own son made sense. Of course, Chai Yueli and the others definitely didn't know what they were facing. Qiao Jin tapped the table thoughtfully. I need to think about it. What kind of array formation would take so long? Or rather, they didn't plan to use the array formation at all. The array formation will backfire, but humans won't. Once there was a flaw in the array, there would be a backfire. But if it was done by people themselves, the one with power would be none other than the bloodline. Indeed, Chai Yueli and Ji Chiyue didn't have any other children. Ji Fanjing was the only one. Although the Ji family had Ji Sikai, it didn't mean that Ji Fanjing's biological mother wouldn't be able to fight for it. At that time, even if they got a part of the Ji family, it would be very dangerous for the Ji family. However, this was just a guess. As for the He early family's goal, they would only know after they found out the emperor. Moreover, there were other array masters in the center of the imperial capital keeping an eye on them. The great emperor didn't dare to come, and those people also hid in the dark and didn't do anything. Qiao Jin's eyes flickered as he suddenly thought of the Rakshasa realm. She looked at Song Yanqing and asked, have you seen the Rakshasa realm recently? Song Yanqing said, it's very rare to see them. They don't appear as frequently as before. His thoughts moved quickly. You think these things are related to the Rakshasa realm? You said that the Rakshasa world has nothing to do with the real world. I did say that, and I think so too. Qiao Jin frowned. But that's just what I think. There might be some changes. The devils from the Rakshasa realm can't come over, but they've been trying their best to lure the spiritual reader into becoming a devil. There must be some kind of scheme. Qiao Jin thought of Duan Nianru. Back then, Duan Nianru hadn't transformed into a devil, but she had used the power of a devil. Instead, he became a puppet of the Holy Family. Why did he become a puppet of the Holy Family? Qiao Jin had also thought of this question back then, but she felt that it wasn't very likely. Now, she felt that she might have been mistaken. She had lost a part of her memories, and this was the biggest problem. In these 10,000 years, what changes had happened in this world? Just like the accelerated development of modern plans, anything was possible. Chapter 569. Maybe the demons of the Rakshasa world didn't just want to stay in the Rakshasa world. Even if they couldn't come over, the human world could provide them with an endless supply of demonic thoughts. The two worlds didn't seem to be connected, but humans could obtain the power of demonization. Demons needed the return of demonized spiritual seeds to nourish each other. Even she herself could use the demonic spirit seed. TSK. She vaguely felt that she had touched upon a great conspiracy. Song Yanqing and she looked at each other. Something flashed through their eyes. Obviously, they thought of the same thing. Qiao Jin had talked a lot about the Rakshasa world. Song Yanqing had also come into contact with it. He roughly understood what was going on. He suddenly laughed. It seems like the early family is more dangerous than we thought. Because it was possible that they were working directly with the Rakshasa world. It doesn't matter. Qiao Jin lowered her head and carefully guarded. She wasn't worried about any conspiracy. The biggest premonition in her heart was her memories. Moreover, she felt that there was something guiding her forward. Cause and effect allowed her to have her own balance. Premonitions, however, belonged to her. It seemed like the final chapter was to recover her memories. With this thought, Qiao Jin wasn't in a hurry. No matter what conspiracy there was, using the magic circle to revive herself was against the heavens. It was something she did herself. If she didn't revive, she wouldn't care about these things. Now that she was revived, she could deal with the backlash and recover her final memories. At that time, everything would be clear. Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin's lowered face. It was delicate and white. His fingertips shook slightly as if he was inexplicably nourished. It was just for a moment. He chuckled and looked away. There's one more thing. My mother and sister will be coming back from abroad soon. They want to see you and express their gratitude to you. They knew that Qiao Jin saved Song Yanqing. Qiao Jin nodded. Okay. Song Yanqing had mentioned this before, so Qiao Jin agreed without hesitation. Song Yanqing nodded. Suddenly, he thought of something and smiled warmly. I forgot to tell you that school is about to start. Little friend, study hard and make progress every day. Qiao Jin, this didn't seem like something Song Yanqing should say. She nodded. I will. She looked as if she was telling him that she would definitely score 100 points next time. Song Yanqing couldn't help but laugh at her appearance. He covered his lower lip with a finger. Okay, I'll wait and see. Qiao Jin sent him downstairs. When he reached the living room, he found that Ma Ruyan and Chu Zikuan had disappeared. She didn't ask. Qiao Fei said to Song Yanqing happily, Is Lord Song leaving? Song Yanqing smiled politely. Auntie, you can call me Yanqing in the future. There's no need to be so distant. Chapter 570. Usually, students had to live on campus, unless they had a special application. She transferred here last semester, and the dormitory was full. Moreover, her house was close to the school, so she was not assigned a dormitory. But there was a bad incident during the summer vacation last semester, and the school was criticized. Now the principal was changed, and the new principal was very strict about the safety of the students. He required every student to live on campus. Although the students were not forced to stay on campus during the day, they had to check the name list every night. This was for the safety of the students. It was okay for the students to live on campus. Qiao Jin saw that the rules of living on campus were from Monday to Friday, and she could go home on weekends if she had no classes. She was not so against living on campus. But she had to live with others in the end. Qiao Fei knew that Qiao Jin had to live on campus, and she was a little reluctant. She took the initiative to call the teacher to ask if she could not live on campus. But Qiao Jin had no special circumstances, and there was no other reason. The higher-ups did not agree at all. Yanhui School was not like other places. There were many powerful parents everywhere, and the school board had a lot of power. Students with more powerful families could not get special treatment. Qiao Jin knew the result, so she did not care. If he wanted to live in the school, so be it. The school's living conditions were good, and she had already been assigned a dormitory. She received the dormitory arrangement on the day of registration. Yanhui School was a semi-aristocratic school, so the school's living conditions were very good. The 4-person dormitory was very large, and there were 2 bathrooms. The bed was custom-made by the school, and the air conditioner and washing machine were all available. The price was considered reasonable for an off-campus dormitory. After all, this was the condition. The girls' dormitory was a small and fresh building with various cartoon stickers on the roof. Every year, the buildings would be repainted and disinfected during the summer vacation to ensure a clean and hygienic environment. From the appearance, the dormitory's environment was one of the best in the whole of China. The first floor of the dormitory was a cafeteria, except for the upstairs. The students could choose to order takeout downstairs if they were hungry at night. It was very convenient. Qiao Jin was assigned to Block C, 306. She was a junior this year, and there were no empty beds in the language department. She was assigned to live with students from other departments. Qiao Fei packed her suitcase at home and asked the driver to send it to her. When she carried her suitcase into the dormitory, there was already someone in the dormitory. The other 3 had all arrived. Out of the 3 of them, 2 of them occupied one side, while the other side was occupied by the door. Qiao Jin was left facing the direction of the balcony. The beds were all laid out against the wall. The bottom was hollowed out and used to place a small cabinet. The students all slept on top of it. When Qiao Jin entered, he saw a familiar face. Zhongli Peining. Zhongli Peining sat beside the empty bed. When she saw that it was Qiao Jin, she was a little surprised. Qiao Jin, do you live here? This was a special fate. She had never thought that the school dormitory would be shared with Qiao Jin. Wouldn't it be more convenient to monitor people? Qiao Jin glanced at Zhongli Peining, nodded slightly, and walked in with his suitcase. As for the other 2 female students, one of them was wearing glasses as thick as soy sauce bottles. Without looking, one could tell that she was a top student. School had just started and hadn't been issued a book yet. She was holding a foreign book and studying hard. The other one looked delicate and was holding a small mirror to touch up her makeup. When she saw Qiao Jin, she was a little surprised. They held their phones and praised Qiao Jin. That temperament is way too good, isn't it? Little fairy, I'm a deity. Oh, I was right to choose Yanhui back then. With a little fairy like this, my life is worth it. This handsome guy is so handsome as well. Ah, this is a school with good looks. When Musichu saw Qiao Jin, he was pushing 2 suitcases. Mom packed new blankets and sheets for you. You can change them. As for the rest of your daily necessities, tell me if you need anything and I'll buy them for you. Qiao Jin took over the suitcases and smiled. No need. I can take care of myself. I'll buy anything I need. Musichu frowned slightly. Up to you. Call me if you need anything. I'll stay on campus as well. The previous 2 years, the school wasn't strict. But now, it was strict. Besides, Musilian had left and he was alone at home. Naturally, he would choose to stay on campus. Chapter 572. Musichu and the others would graduate this year. He would be very busy in the last semester. Basically, all seniors were like this. They might not be in school often. Xiao Jin pushed her suitcase up. A girl ran up and asked her, "Can you carry it? Do you need help?" She was so good-looking that she could even subdue girls. Xiao Jin was not stingy with a smile. "No, thank you." The girl looked at her smile and sighed. It was worth it. She pushed her suitcase up. Zhongli Peining was not in the dormitory. She did not care. She quietly made her bed and put her things away. Then, she received a message from Song Yanqing. School had started. Knowing that she was going to stay on campus, he invited her for a big meal. Of course, Xiao Jin agreed. Today was also the day that school started all over the country. Meng Qingyu was no exception. Unlike many people, although she was from the capital, she had been studying in a foreign university to avoid in Jingsong for so many years. Now that things were different, she did not need to go abroad. He Yao used the Spirit Group's network to transfer her to another university easily. Because of her ordinary grades, Meng Qingyu chose an ordinary university. The only difference was that it was quite close to Yanhui, where Xiao Jin was studying. She did not need to go back to university. After signing up, she had her own things to do. She was going to pick up in Jingsong. She had to go through the procedures to get out of the detention center. And Jingsong had been childless for so many years. He could only blame his poor health. Because of this, he hated Yu Shurong very much. He used this as an excuse to beat Yu Shurong. He thought that it was because Yu Shurong could not get pregnant that he did not have children. Only Meng Qingyu could go through the procedures. When she went to go through the procedures, and Jingsong was already brought out by the police. When he saw Meng Qingyu, his body trembled reflexively. He was still handcuffed. He grabbed the police's sleeve and begged, "Officer, can I not go back? Can you lock me up for a while longer?" The police felt that there was something wrong with him. In the past, he was very arrogant when he came in. Now that he was going to leave, he did not want to go out. This was not a child's play. No one cared about him. When Meng Qingyu walked over, he glanced at Jingsong indifferently. Instead, he smiled as if he was very happy. "Dad, I'm here to bring you home." These words immediately entered Jingsong's ears. It was as if it had its own echoes, repeating over and over again. In an instant, it became Jingsong's nightmare. His eyes widened, and just as he was about to say something, he felt a force him to shut his mouth, and he couldn't even struggle. He could only be pushed away by the police. He saw Meng Qingyu's fingers gliding quietly. That was proof that she was controlling Jingsong, but no one could see it. It was also the beginning of his path of no return. And Jingsong struggled with all his might, but he couldn't move at all. His face turned red, as if his anger was about to burst out of his head. He could only let out a muffled groan, unable to utter a single word. The police officers only thought that he was a little strange and thought that there was something wrong with him. They didn't care about anything else. After Meng Qingyu signed the paperwork, a policeman patted Meng Qingyu's shoulder worriedly. "Miss Meng, no matter what, if there's anything, look for the police." He was afraid that Jingsong would do something to him again. Especially when they knew that Yu Shurong was now in the mental hospital, they were very puzzled as to why Meng Qingyu still wanted to bring him back. However, when they heard that Meng Qingyu was going to stay on campus after school started, they were a little relieved. Chapter 573. And Jingsong only saw Meng Qingyu smiling obediently at the police. "Okay, thank you for your reminder. If there's anything, I'll definitely look for you." In Jingsong's eyes, that smile was the devil's smile. He did not doubt what would happen to him. All the things he had done to the mother and son over the years, she would do to him one by one. And Jing Song was taken away by her. Because he was controlled, he could not resist at all. Meng Qingyu brought him to the car. When they returned home, the neighbors saw that Meng Qingyu had really brought in Jing Song home. Their expressions were a little strange. However, they did not dare to interfere. If Jing Song went crazy, who knew what he would do? The neighbors had heard more than once that he had threatened to kill the mother and daughter. Who would dare to interfere? After entering the house, the moment Meng Qingyu locked the door, her smile turned cold. She turned around and slapped Jing Song's face. She had also started to receive training from the Spirit Awakening group. She had chosen the martial arts course. Not only did she want to have the ability to use spiritual sense, she also wanted to have absolute strength. When she slapped Jing Song, she only felt that her heart was incomparably carefree. There was a strange sense of calmness. And Jing Song's body loosened. The control was released, but his mouth still made a sound. He could only be slapped to one side. He panicked and wanted to resist, but Meng Qingyu only waved her hand and he was forced to fly away. Meng Qingyu grabbed the ashtray on the table that Jing Song often used and mercilessly smashed it on his shoulder. It was not good to hit the head. He would be smashed to death. How could there be such a good thing? And Jing Song called out to the heavens, but there was no response. He could not cry out. He could only hear the sound of a blunt object hitting his shoulder. The pain in his shoulder bone made him feel like hell was nothing more than this. His face was red and cold sweat broke out. He hugged his shoulder and wailed silently. When you hit my mother, when you hit me, did you do the same? Did you do the same? Did it hurt? I'm asking you if it hurt. At this moment, Meng Qingyu's face had become completely ferocious. Just as the psychologist had said, it wasn't easy to control herself. At the same time, Meng Qingyu felt a cold feeling in her heart. It was as if something was forcing her to calm down. However, the combination of anger and this state inevitably made her irritable. And Jing Song couldn't answer. Every time Meng Qingyu asked a question, she would hit him. The ashtray was made of glass. Unless it was smashed on the ground, it wouldn't break a person's bones. The pain was unimaginable. More than once, Jing Song threw the ashtray at her and her mother. Do you know how much I want to kill you? How much I want to kill you in one go? Meng Qingyu continued to hit him, but tears still gushed out of his eyes. Because she was too agitated, too wronged, the pain from back then had now turned into hatred. She only wanted revenge. And Jing Song was smashed by her at a certain spot, and the pain pierced through his heart. Soon, that spot was badly mutilated. Seeing that he was almost out of breath, Meng Qingyu brushed his hair and calmed down. She stood and looked at Jing Song with cold eyes. Do you think it's over now? This is just the beginning. You will suffer in the future. And Jing Song was able to speak in an instant. He immediately begged for mercy. I was wrong, I was really wrong. Xiao Yu, Daddy was wrong, Daddy was wrong. Chapter 574. His wailing couldn't soften Meng Qingyu's heart at all. How could just a few words repay her for so many years of suffering? The suffering she and her mother had suffered. Now Yu Shurong had gone crazy because of the stimulation, but it was also because of Jing Song. For so many years, so many years. Day and night, she was afraid that she would be beaten to death by him in the next moment. Perhaps what he was thinking now was why he didn't find time to kill Meng Qingyu back then. If he had killed Meng Qingyu earlier, with the name of domestic violence, at most, he would have gone to jail for a few years. Maybe he would have been out long ago. How did it become like this? Meng Qingyu panted heavily. Her eyes were red now, and she looked extremely scary. She was tired, so she went to pour herself a glass of water. While he was drinking water, and Jing Song, who was behind him, was looking at him with hatred in his eyes. But he had no choice. He couldn't resist Meng Qingyu at all now, just like Meng Qingyu couldn't resist him back then. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing returned to school after eating. The afternoon class schedule hadn't been arranged yet. They still had the last half a day of free rest. The girl with glasses in the dormitory was buried in her studies. They didn't know if she had gone to eat or not. Qiao Jin sat on his bed and looked at the news on the internet. The hottest thing recently was the Feng family's matter. The Feng family was also a well-known family. Many of their companies were related to the Feng family. In addition to the gossip about their family and the recent incidents, the netizens were most concerned about this matter. The hot search on Weibo was quite lively. Qiao Jin looked at it and didn't find any important information. They were all talking about the Feng family's old affairs. Including their strange luck, some people stood up to analyze it. This was also a problem with the Feng family now. If it was in the past, no one would dare to say this. Qiao Jin just curled his lips and slowly looked at the gossip about the Feng family that had been exposed. Song Yanqing returned home and received a message. Someone from the Feng family came to look for Song Shireen. Song Shireen returned temporarily because of a business trip. She didn't know if it was related to this matter. Tong winked at Song Yanqing. It's young Master Qian'an's father's brother. Talking about marriage, actually, they weren't really close. The Feng family was so chaotic because Feng Qian'an's father, Feng Linming, only had a half-brother. He could also be considered her biological brother. But the other party's style of doing things was completely opposite to Feng Linming's. Yes expression was a little gossipy. He brought his daughter with him. When Song Yanqing heard this, there was only a faint smile on his lips. When he arrived at the main hall, he saw Song Yiyin, who was entertaining the Feng family. There were 3 people standing in the hall. One was Song Yanqing's father, Song Yiyin. The other was Feng Liming's elder brother, Feng Shao, and his daughter, Feng Yunqi. Feng Yunqi was also a well-known figure. She was famous for her beauty and was especially famous in the entire Feng family. She was also a socialite in the capital. When Song Yanqing came in, they all saw him. When Feng Yunqi saw Song Yanqing, her beautiful eyes revealed a hint of shyness. She was indeed astonishingly beautiful. However, Song Yanqing glanced at her and didn't give her any gaze before looking at his father. He called out in an elegant tone, "Dad, Uncle Feng Shao." When Feng Shao saw him, he greeted him with great enthusiasm. "Nephew, it's been a long time." Yi, how can he be so shameless? Chapter 575. Even those who had a good relationship with him, even Feng Linming, wouldn't call Song Yanqing that way. Nephew Gu, those who didn't know would think that Feng Shao and the Song family had a good relationship. In fact, before this, Feng Shao basically didn't interact with the Song family for 10,000 years. This time, he suddenly came with his daughter. Anyone with eyes could see what his purpose was. Song Yanqing maintained a polite and alienated faint smile towards his enthusiasm. His attitude couldn't be seen. After Feng Shao called out to Song Yanqing, he said to Song Shireen, "Shireen, I haven't seen this Yanqing for a long time, but his complexion is getting better and better. Looking at his appearance, he's so outstanding. There must be many people in the capital looking forward to marrying into your Song family." Song Shireen also smiled politely. "I can't think of that for the time being. My son is still young, and he has to start taking care of the company's affairs. There are many things he has to learn. Marriage isn't urgent for the time being." "Hey, Enchanting is already 25 years old. Why don't you ask Enchanting if he wants to find a girlfriend or have a stable dating partner? As soon as Feng Shao finished speaking, Song Enchanting said gently and nobly, Uncle Feng Shao, you're thinking too much. I don't have such thoughts for the time being. This sentence shut Feng Shao up. Feng Shao's face stiffened for a moment, and Feng Yinqi's expression also changed slightly. Feng Yinqi glanced at Song Enchanting again and found that the other party's gaze wasn't on her at all. Looking at the other party's polite and alienated appearance, she couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. She was also the favored daughter of the Feng family. When had she ever been ignored to such an extent? Feng Shao smiled again. Enchanting, you're also a man and have reached the age. Even if you're not in a hurry to get married now, you can still have a stable partner to date, right? Uncle won't hide it. This time, what do you think of my daughter? If the situation hadn't forced him, Feng Shao wouldn't have done such an impatient and rude thing. He lowered his head when he brought his daughter here, but he was still quite confident in his daughter. Feng Yinqi's beauty was unparalleled. Few men could control themselves when they saw her. He had been teaching her carefully for so many years. She had become noble and generous. She was the well-deserved Miss Jiao of the Feng family. Her talent and beauty were unparalleled. Basically, few men could touch her. Although she had considered Song Enchanting before, at that time, the Feng family was not in trouble yet. She did not have to consider a sick person for the time being. Now that something was going to happen to the Feng family, Feng Shao himself was implicated and was in a desperate situation. He could only pull out his daughter for a marriage alliance and hope that the Song family would help. Unfortunately, in this world, there were always some people who thought too highly of themselves. He was also overconfident. Song Enchanting smiled, but his eyes still did not fall on Feng Yinqi. He only said indifferently, Uncle Feng Shao, I said that I don't have such thoughts. This was already the most polite way of putting it. To put it bluntly, he doesn't like your daughter. What could Feng Shao do? Song Shireen also smiled and said, Feng Shao, why don't you ask your daughter's opinion when you say this? This kind of matter is not child's play, and it's a matter between young people. As elders, we shouldn't get involved. Look at me, I don't care about Enchanting's matters. These words were telling Feng Shao that he would not object to Song Enchanting's words. In other words, he wanted to introduce Feng Yinqi to Song Enchanting. As long as Song Enchanting did not agree, there was no chance. The Feng family needed a marriage alliance, but the Song family did not. Since you've taken a liking to her, you should know that there's a mystery about her that hasn't been explained. Figure it out yourself. Song Enchanting smiled and took the lead. Dad, I will. He wasn't someone who didn't know his limits. If he wasn't confident, he wouldn't have said these things. Song Shireen couldn't help but ask, how does she treat you? Song Enchanting said, there are some exceptions. She doesn't know much about relationships. Song Shireen gasped, it's a miracle. Whether it was Song Enchanting or Qiao Jin, it was really a miracle that they had not officially developed. Song Shireen also knew her son's charm. It seemed that there were indeed strange people in this world. Song Enchanting only laughed. Probably. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.